Hi everybody, welcome to another English class here on verblink.com. My name is Lisa and I'm one of the English teachers here at Verblink. And in this hour, I'm going to be offering a reading class. So if you have a reservation for this hour, you can go ahead and use your reservation. If you don't have a reservation, then you can just wait a couple of minutes. And when you see the Join Class button up at the top of the screen there, you just click on the Join Class button and then you'll come in here where Hamid and I are. And this is the classroom, the Google Plus Hangouts. If you're not a member, then you do need to join before you can join classes and participate in the classes. You have a couple of different ways you can become a member. You can try for a week for free, or if you know you want to do it, you can just go ahead and pay the money. There's a monthly subscription fee. You can also buy 10 classes at a time if you're not sure if you can spend as much time as some people do. Okay, Hamid, I see your link chat is not working. I think they're doing some fixes on the Google Hangouts Verbling interactions, so maybe that might be the reason. How are you, Hamid?
I'm fine. What about you?
I'm good. It's a nice day today. Yesterday was kind of rainy, but today's sunny and warm, and my kids have some soccer games later, so after my class, I'm going to be driving my son to his soccer game.
I wish good luck for your son.
Thanks. Yeah, so far they've won every game. The team's pretty good compared to the other ones so far, so that's fun.
He can take a goal. He can score at least 3 times.
Okay, I'll tell him. Do a hat trick. That's called a hat trick.
Yes, I know this term.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I think I did not see his last game last Saturday, but they won and he scored a couple of goals, but I don't know how many. He plays usually either a forward position or a midfielder. So, yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Claudio. Oh, hold on. Claudio, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh,
hey, Lisa. How are you? Happy Saturday for you.
Thank you. Yeah, to you too. Welcome.
How is life? How is life coming along?
Good. Life is going well. Busy as usual, but having fun and having a good time. And I was just telling Hamid, the weather's changing, of course. It's becoming autumn, so that's normal, and I like autumn, so I like it. But yesterday was quite rainy, and the night before that, not last night, but the night before, it was really windy. But today, it's sunny again and warm, so it's a nice day for soccer. Yeah, which my son's going to play a game today.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great to hear. You go watch him.
I'm the driver. I drive and I watch.
Okay.
Yes. That's the term. That is why we have the term in the United States, soccer mom. I don't know if you guys have heard that term before, but people are soccer moms because this is what we do in the fall when it's funny because soccer is not so popular as it is in other countries at the professional level, but it's pretty popular for kids. So a lot of times your kid, maybe at the ages of 7, 8, 10, maybe up until about 12, a lot of kids play soccer. So mostly Saturdays are devoted to soccer. Some places have soccer on Saturday and Sunday. So in the fall season for about 10 weeks, this is what a lot of families do, is soccer on the weekends. And so soccer moms, we're the ones who drive the vans or the cars full of the kids going to the soccer games and bringing snacks and things like that. So
That's great. Well, you have to encourage him to play sports. I don't have that luck with my parents. I just have to have it on my own account. To develop that interest on my own account.
Yeah, that's true. Here in the United States, it's pretty popular for parents, especially like, if you have a certain level of income, middle class, let's say, to encourage their kids to play sports either in school or outside of school for a couple of years at least. Of course, when they get older, then they can do whatever they want, but we try to support them. Sometimes it can go a little overboard, if you understand that. Like the parents are too excited about their kids playing more than the kids are excited about it.
Yeah.
So when that happens, it's not always a good thing. That sometimes happens like in baseball. You might get some parents who really, they fight, like two parents fighting over the game, and the kids don't really care. They're just having a good time, but the
Yeah.
parents are serious about it. It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Araceli. How are you? Your microphone's muted if you're there. I don't know. Hi, Sergio.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, everybody.
Well,
How are you doing?
Great. Doing well. Thanks. Just talking a little bit about the fall and the changing of the weather and soccer. My kids play soccer.
When I heard soccer, oh, that's.
Oh, you got to come in. All right, soccer.
Oh, I didn't know that. Your son plays soccer?
Yeah, I have 3 kids, and all of them have played soccer up until this year. But this year, only one of my sons, he's 14, he's still playing. But we live in a small town, so as you get older, it's harder to find enough kids your same age who want to do that same sport. So my older son, who's 16, he doesn't have a team. So he's not playing right now. But that's okay. He's doing other things. He does CrossFit, and he also does mountain biking and some other sports activities. Yeah, so he doesn't have a team. And my daughter, she doesn't want to play soccer anymore because now she wants to do dance. So instead of soccer, she's doing dance. And some people try to do 2 sports, but it's hard because you have to practice and you have to go to the games, and there's not enough time in the week to do everything. So she's doing dance.
I'm curious now. For this who's is 14. That's
my son.
He's playing
my
now.
son.
Yeah. But he's playing like just for fun, or he's thinking like, oh, I wanna be a super soccer star or something like that.
Last year, he played in a more competitive league where, people were really serious, and he did very well, but we live in a small town, so he had to go to a different town to do that. So 3 days a week, we had to drive like an hour to get to practice for like an hour and a half, 2 hours to come home, and that was too much driving, and so he's playing for fun now. So who knows? In the future, he might play like in high school league, and if you play at the high school level, you can go on to college and professional after that. But right now, it's mostly for fun. Yeah.
No, yeah.
But he's really good.
Actually, this is always, even when you become professional. For most Brazilians, soccer is like play soccer is like for fun. Just because when you have 14, it's like you are become, thinking seriously. Oh yeah, I wanna go on that. And this is good when you play with guys a little or maybe 2 years more older than me. You can experience and
people on his team are actually like 2 teams together, so there's 14, 15, and 16-year-olds playing together. So it's a good mix, and they have a good level of skill. So it's good. Yeah. Okay, Araceli, are you with us? Hamid wants to share his surprise with us that he's made. You guys might be familiar with Hamid's creative surprises that he has for some of the teachers here on Verbally.
So can I show?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, this lesson is your 997th lesson.
Wow, okay.
But I prepared it for maybe tomorrow you will make this lesson, but I am showing.
All right, sure. 1,000, yes, maybe it might be tomorrow or Monday.
Yes, but how can we say 1,000 in some languages?
Let's see.
In Spanish, mil.
Mm-hmm.
In Arabic, like elf, or like that.
Like that? Okay.
I don't know its pronunciation.
Me neither. Yeah.
In Chinese, qian, or like that.
Uh-huh. Nice. I didn't know that.
In Afrikaans, duizend.
Duizend.
And in Turkish, bin.
Bin. Bin.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And with VerbLink, you are a multinational teacher.
Yes, thank you. Awesome. You've been working on your creative side again. Thank you, Hamid. Thank you. Okay, yeah.
1,000, wow.
Yeah, that's a lot on VerbLink. Okay, Araceli, are you there? Or maybe there's noise in the background you don't want to... There you are.
I'm here, but there's a lot of noise in the background.
I just remembered there might be noise in the background.
Yes, actually my children, they are fighting and yelling and it's horrible.
That's really funny. That's the funny thing about this type of classroom situation because we're not together and we can only see each other. Like you guys can see me. I see Sergio, but we don't see any of you guys. We don't know what's happening in your house or around you or behind you. Sometimes my cat is, doing crazy stuff, and so it's an interesting experience and the amazing thing is we're all in different countries and all of this is happening all at the same time. It's so fascinating.
Yeah. Sometimes my daughter comes and watches the screen and she always answers, "Who is that teacher? Where is he or she?" And she's really surprised that I'm talking to people all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I know, it's amazing. I like it. Okay. Oh, you have a beard growing, Hamid? Is that why you don't want to turn on your camera?
Yes, I haven't shaved maybe for 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. Oh, come on, turn on your camera so we want to see how much hair grows in 3 weeks.
But after lesson, maybe after lesson, I can show to you in special environment.
Oh, okay, special environment, like Skype. Okay. Okay, Ken, how are you doing?
Yes, I'm fine. How are you?
Good. And I never know what Ken looks like because I always see Paul McCartney. Yeah. Now I think Paul McCartney is Ken.
My room is a bit messy, so I cannot show my room.
Your room's a mess.
I already thinking about. I was thinking that maybe this is for 1,000. Classes and maybe Paul McCartney here. Wow.
Paul McCartney showed up. Yeah. Very special guest. Yeah, and Araceli's a princess, and she's not even human. She's a cartoon, so. Except for, I know what you look like in real life now, because we met. Yeah.
Yes, I'm a real person. I don't really have a camera on this computer, so it's sometimes I use a laptop, but usually I don't. So I don't have the chance to open my camera. But I'm real.
I know you're real. There's a real person there. Yeah, I think a lot of people. Everybody just has different comfort levels with, do you want to be on screen, or like what Ken says, maybe you're in an environment and you don't want everybody to see room or something like that. So it just depends. And a lot of times it is a better connection if you turn your camera off. If you have any trouble with your connection, it helps to have your camera off.
But
right,
Lisa,
yeah.
I think Araceli is the luckiest person for this hangout because she met you face to face.
Yeah, well, we were both lucky. That was great. We had a great time. Hey, I wish I could just travel around and meet all of you guys. That would be a good life. Now I'll go to Brazil, Japan, Chile.
You can do
Turkey.
virtually, but we want a real, really.
Yes, I know. Well, as my kids get older, I have more opportunities to travel, so I'm definitely going to be traveling in the future. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get to our little reading here. It's not a super long one. Oh, Claudia, I doubt you're going to scare anybody. I know what some of people look like because they're also friends with me on Facebook, so I do know what some of you guys look like in person by your Facebook pictures, but not everybody. All right, so here, this is an interesting article I found. It's from this website called Quartz, which is actually from Harvard, and I think it's Harvard Business, maybe the School of Education and School of Business. So it has different articles related to both of those things, education and business, technology, the future, what's happening, lots of different topics there. Let me see. So you can see here, it's very international. So it's kind of an interesting place. I haven't taken articles from here before, but I probably will take some more because they're well written usually and interesting for an international audience, I think. Okay, so let's read this one. This one in particular is interesting because it's something that's happening in the United States, but maybe also in other countries. This article says it's also happening in the United Kingdom, and that is basically the idea that people are becoming kind of obsessed with or obsessing over or about learning Chinese. A lot of people know that Chinese has, over a billion people, and so it makes logical sense to think, well, we should learn Chinese because then we would be able to have access to all of these people who speak this language. But this article is arguing a different point, so we're going to read about that and see what this person says, and then I want to hear a little bit what you guys think. Is it this? Does he have a good point, or should we still be learning Chinese? And what's the feeling in your countries? Are people also learning Chinese, not just English maybe, but thinking that Chinese might even be a better language to learn instead of English? All right. So people in the West can stop obsessing about learning Chinese. The leaders of the Western world think their young citizens should be learning Mandarin Chinese. David Cameron said so late last year, and Barack Obama's own daughter Sasha is learning the language. Why Mandarin? The arguments are familiar. First, China's growing economic heft. Okay, Ken, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Sorry. The leaders.
Yeah, go ahead.
The leaders of the Western world think their young citizens should be learning Mandarin Chinese. David Cameron said so late last year, and Barack Obama's own daughter, Sasha, is learning the language. Why Mandarin? The arguments are familiar. First, China's growing economic heft.
Heft, yeah. So obsessing, I think you guys probably understand that. People in the West can stop. So it's an interesting title because it's kind of like a command, like, okay, you can stop now, do this kind of thing. He's kind of reassuring us it's not necessary. So when somebody obsesses about something, they think it's really, really important, and they're trying to do as best they can, as much as they can. People obsess about lots of different things, and we use the word in English kind of not in a real clinical diagnosis sense, but even if somebody is nervous or worried about something, we might say, oh, stop obsessing about your hair or your looks or your weight, and it means stop thinking about it so much, stop worrying about it, chill out, that kind of idea. So that's kind of how he means it in that title there. I just pointed out leaders. I think you guys all understand the word, but it's interesting because he's saying the leaders of the Western world are thinking that their young citizens, so their children and stuff, should be learning Mandarin Chinese. So it's becoming more popular in the schools. I wanted to differentiate because not all citizens think that Chinese is so important, but the leaders do. So they're kind of setting educational ideas and policies in their countries, and that makes a big difference. So the arguments or why somebody would tell you you have to do something, that's the argument for or against something, is familiar, or the arguments are, plural, familiar. So we are familiar with them. We've heard them before. So the first one he goes into is the fact that is growing as an economy. So the growing economic heft. Heft means, like, if you're a hefty person, you're strong. So it's basically becoming a very strong economy, and therefore people might want to learn the language. That's the idea. People have heard that a lot. By the time the children born today leave school, China is set to be the world's largest economy, Cameron said. So it's time to look beyond the traditional focus on French and German and get many more children learning Mandarin. Okay, Araceli.
By the time the children born today leave school, China is said to be the world's largest economy, Cameron said. So it's time to look beyond the traditional focus on French and German and get many more children learning Mandarin.
Yeah. By is set to be. What do you think? Do you know what that means in that sentence?
Yes, that China is going to become the world's main economy.
Right. So set to be, it's kind of like this. They're set. They're ready. They're going to be. So yeah, exactly. They're going to be the world's largest economy. All right, and then focus on. I'm just pointing this out to make sure you guys know that we use on when we use focus. So you focus on something or somebody. And this is, of course, talking about in the United States and the United Kingdom. So typically here in the United States, the most popular languages to learn, like in high school usually, are Spanish. That's by far the most popular, and then French or German. Nowadays, some people are learning Mandarin and also Japanese. All right, the second reason is that Chinese gives a speaker access to the world's largest linguistic population. Why learn Spanish with a measly 400 million speakers when China is home to 1.3 billion? But that second argument assumes that everybody in China is fluent in Mandarin. They're not. Okay, Claudio.
The second reason is that Chinese gives a speaker access to the world's largest linguistic population. Why learning Spanish with a measly
yeah,
400 million speakers when China is home to 1.3 billion? But what that second argument assumes that everybody in China is fluent in Mandarin. They are not.
What is it? What do you understand when you read they are going to have access to the world's largest linguistic population? Access to.
Access to.
Yeah.
Well, exactly that.
In other words.
You are going to enter. Well, by speaking Chinese, you can have a common code with people that speak that language.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things after my 1,000 hours of teaching on Verbling is a lot of you guys who are higher level. It's one thing to understand, but it's a little bit more work for you guys to come and tell me in your own words what it means. Sometimes you can do it like you just did, and then sometimes I notice people struggle with it. So I might be doing that a little more just because I want you to be really fluent in lots of ways of speaking. So because I think a lot of you understand pretty well when we're reading, but then to say it back and explain it kind of in your own words is a really good practice as well, just so you have lots of ways of talking about the same idea. So yeah, to have access is to speak the same language basically. If you can't speak any Chinese, you don't really have access to that population in the same way. I mean, they might speak English as a common language, but not always. So you might not have a common language. All right, so this is very sarcastic here, kind of. Why learn Spanish with a measly? So measly means like a very small amount, but of course 400 million isn't very small, it's very significant. But compared to China, you could say that it's a smaller amount because China is home to, or represents, 1.3 billion speakers. But he's making his argument here that you would have to assume, making this argument assumes that everybody is fluent in Mandarin, and the fact is they are not. So they're not fluent in Mandarin. So you will not be able to have access to 1.3 billion people. The country's official education ministry announced last week that only 70% of the people in the country can be considered Mandarin speakers. Of that 70%, the ministry said only 10% are capable of communicating fluently in the language. In short, you don't have to be fluent in Mandarin to speak better than 93% of China. Okay, Hamid.
The country's official education ministry announced last week that only 70% of people in the country can be considered Mandarin speakers. Of that 70%, the minister said only 10% are capable of communicating fluently in the language. In short, you don't have to be fluent in Mandarin to speak better than 93% of China.
Okay, this is kind of a weird way to say it, the way he said that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so they announced, so they just told people. So when an official agency or a ministry or something gives information to the public, we call that an announcement, and the verb is to announce. So the president announced yesterday, or the prime minister announced that he will be blah, blah, blah. So it just means you're telling the public, not just like a private group or something like that. All right, so they announced that, which is kind of a big deal. And only 70% of the people can be considered. What would you say that means, Hamid? How would you describe? It means 70% of people in the country can be considered Mandarin speakers. What does that mean?
Only take serious, maybe.
Yeah, can be like yeah. What else? To be taken seriously as what?
As much as, or maybe 70 people think carefully.
Well, it's considered Mandarin speakers. So yes, usually when we use the word considered, it means to think about something. So in this case, it's a little different though. So when you say,
or can we say give importance?
No.
Okay.
No. What? Does anybody have another idea? How would you say that in a different way?
Only 70% are real Mandarin speakers.
Right. Exactly. So to be considered something means like you really are that, what they say. So only 70% of the people can be. So basically we're dropping it now. So not 100% of the people are. Only 70% of those people can be considered Mandarin speakers. So for example, Araceli, you put in the Wikipedia, it says that 850 million people speak Mandarin. So they're considered Mandarin speakers. That would maybe be that figure. People say they're Mandarin speakers, but he's making a point. Of that 70%, the ministry said, so they said, they gave the information that actually, like in reality, only 10% are capable of. They're actually fluent, communicating fluently in the language. So So that's kind of a misleading number. If you say 850 million people speak Mandarin, it might, like you said, right, exactly, it might not be their native language, and they might not speak it very well or very much or very often, kind of thing, you know? So that's the interesting thing about China being a huge country. Not everybody is speaking Mandarin, so there's a little bit of a misunderstanding about that, is what the author wants to share in this article. So in short, another word for in short could just be, so like basically, you don't have to be fluent in Mandarin to speak better than 93%. So the idea is maybe you could learn some Chinese. You don't have to be fluent, and if you went to China, you would be able to speak, you know, as well as or better than maybe a lot of the population in China, because even though they speak Mandarin, it might not be very much, actually. So that's the idea that this author is putting forth here. As this interactive map shows, there are vast linguistic differences within China, despite the official language being Mandarin. Even within Mandarin, there are several dialects that share the same writing system. The version referred to as Putonghua, or common speech, in Chinese is just one of many ways of pronouncing these characters. Okay, Sergio.
Okay. As this interactive map shows, that a vast linguistic difference within China, despite the official language being Mandarin. Even with several dialects that share the same writing system. The version referred to a Putonghua.
Putonghua. I don't know.
Or common speech. In Chinese, it's just one of many ways of pronouncing these characters.
Right. So the interactive map that they're talking about, that's a link. So if you want to click on it, you can. But it's this map. And so, you know, we all know China is a huge country. I mean, the United States is huge. Brazil even larger. And so you can see on this map there are lots of different languages and or dialects represented in all of these different areas. So, and you know, it represents a lot of different people. It doesn't just represent like 20 or 200 or 1,000 maybe, but it represents a lot more people. So that's a map you guys can look at if you want to look at it. It's linked there. I just wanted to show you that because it's interesting.
And you have to be totally aware about which city or maybe state you're gonna, if you have a maybe business or something visiting there, because you can spend a lot of time learning Mandarin, and then you go to the like just for this area, the blue one, I think.
Right.
Green.
You can blue or green or something. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely true. I mean, that's even true in other countries around the world, you know, even smaller countries that's true, but especially true in this large land mass, which is China. There are just a lot of different people who've been living in these areas for many years, and so they have different languages. Even, you know, even though your government wants you to all speak one language, it's not necessarily true. Hi, Aldona. Welcome. We're just speaking about the fact that
hello, teacher. Hello, class.
Hi there. So let's see. So yeah, so that's a vast linguistic. So I like to point out the word vast. So it's good, you know, for repetition, and just if you hear it a million times, you're going to learn it. But it just means large, vast, wide, broad, huge, linguistic differences, and that's what that map shows. Is, you know, they're not all speaking Mandarin, even though, or despite, you could say despite the official language being Mandarin, or you could say even though the official language is Mandarin, people are speaking lots of different languages and dialects, even within the same writing system. So Chinese, even though they might share the same characters, they say them differently And so the pronunciation is completely different, and you might not even be able to understand it. So a dialect is like a different way of speaking. It might be related to Mandarin, but it could be quite different. And lots of versions. So referred to as just means that's how you talk about it. So 普通话 or common speech. That's how you call that type or that version of Chinese. So it's just one way of pronouncing the characters. There are other ways as well. Okay, I'll read this part, Aldona, and then you can read it. The current standard form is based on the Beijing dialect, as Chinese law states explicitly. But as late as the 19th century, the Nanjing dialect was considered more universal. If we assume most of the Taiwanese population to be fluent in Mandarin and generously account for the Chinese diaspora abroad, the number of fluent speakers worldwide looks more like 120 million. That number is comparable, if not lower than, the number of fluent speakers of Asian languages like Hindi, Urdu, or Bahasa Indonesian. Okay, Aldona?
The current standard form is based on the Beijing dialect, as Chinese law states explicitly, but as late as the 19th century, the Nanjing dialect was considered more universal. If we assume most of the Taiwanese population to be fluent in Mandarin and generously account for the Chinese diaspora abroad, the number of fluent speakers worldwide looks more like 120 million. That number is comparable, if not lower, than the number of fluent speakers of Asian languages like Hindi, Urdu, or Bahasa Indonesian.
Good. Okay, so the current standard form. Standard form refers to or talks about the Chinese characters, how they're actually writing them and that kind of thing. And so it's based on, so that means that that's where it took the, it's not based on any of the other dialects, it's just coming from this one area in Beijing. And that is explicitly stated. So if something is explicit, it means it's actually like written down very clearly in the law. If something would be the opposite. If it's implicitly, implicit, that would be more like implied. So it's not written down specifically, but you kind of know about it already. So we have, that's the opposite there, explicitly or implicitly. But it's actually written down in the law, so that's why they say it's explicitly in the Chinese law. But there was this other one that was considered. So here we have the same use of the word considered, more universal. So it was known to be more used in other parts of China. So universal means more people are using it. It applies to more people. So he goes on to say, though, if we assume Taiwanese population, if those people are fluent, not just knowing a little bit, but actually fluent, and then if we generously means like, be generous, not skimping or not just counting one or two, but we're going to say, okay, these people are fluent. We're going to account for the people who fled to other countries. So the diaspora is when you have a group of people and they spread out into the world. So of course, a lot of places around the world have a lot of Chinese people. In the United States, we have a lot of Chinese people living in, especially in big cities like San Francisco, New York. Seattle has a lot of Chinese people. That's called the diaspora. There's also, the African diaspora, the Jewish diaspora. It's when people of a certain country or culture, they spread out. All right, so even including all those people, it looks like only about 120 million. So that's a lot different than 850 million, which it says in Wikipedia. So he's just making the distinction. Some people might speak a little bit of Mandarin, but they're not necessarily fluent. So the people who actually use it fluently might only be about 120 million. And so it's comparable, and maybe even, so if not lower than, these other languages like Hindi, Urdu, or Bahasa. And it's also far smaller than the aforementioned 400 million Spanish speakers. But this hasn't stopped Mandarin from taking precedence over these languages in the minds of politicians, parents, and language schools, offering it as the up-and-coming language of international business. Okay, Araceli.
And it's also far smaller than the aforementioned 400 million Spanish speakers. But this hasn't stopped Mandarin from taking precedence over these languages in the minds of politicians, parents, and language schools, offering it as the up-and-coming language of international business.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what the aforementioned means?
Yes, that they say that before in the article.
Yeah. So it's almost like before mentioned, but we say aforementioned. So yeah, so if something is described as aforementioned, it just means somebody did it already before this part of the article. So that's exactly right. All right, so it hasn't stopped Mandarin from taking precedence over. So if something takes precedence over something else, it means it's more important. So in the minds of, so, you know, these days, our politicians, even parents, Araceli, you wrote that children in Spain are going to Saturday school?
No, but I meant for Chinese children.
Okay.
Yes, also here there are, at my children's school there was like English classes after school and also Chinese, but they didn't have too much success. But I meant for Chinese people who are living here.
Oh, okay.
I mean, their families are very concerned about them not forgetting how to write their own language. So they go to special schools. Because in regular Spanish school we don't teach Mandarin, but they learn that in their schools.
Okay, all right.
So with the idea that maybe someday they will return to China and they want to not to forget their language.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. That happens here too. Definitely, they have Saturdays. We call it Saturday school, or yeah, after school classes or something. Yeah, definitely. Up and coming. So up and coming just means it's going to be the next thing. So like we use this also to describe like the up and coming newest like movie stars or an actor. If an actor maybe has done 1 or 2 films and they're just starting their career, really getting recognized, they might be described as up and coming. Like you got to look for them. They're going to be even more famous in the future. So this is going to be up and coming means it's going to be more popular, more famous, I guess, but more popular in terms of international business, being the language of international business. The Modern Language Association of America conducts regular surveys of language enrollment at universities in the U.S. The most recent survey taken in 2009 shows Mandarin catching up to Japanese and positively dwarfing its regional counterparts. Okay, Claudio.
The Modern Language Association of America, MLA, conducts regular surveys of language enrollment at universities in the U.S. The most recent survey, taken in 2009, shows Mandarin catching up to Japanese and positively dwarfing its regional counterparts.
All right, so catching up to. Do you understand that? Claudia, how would you say that? Shows Mandarin catching up to Japanese. It's a phrasal verb.
Yeah. Reaching, like,
getting closer.
Yeah, when you catch up with someone, you're knowing the news of their lives. So you.
Well, that's a little different. If you that is one definition, to catch up with somebody. Like, hey, Claudio, let's meet for coffee and catch up. That would mean like we want to tell each other what's the latest.
If you're in a race and you catch up to someone.
Yeah, that's right.
You reach them.
You reach them. Yeah. That's right. Okay. So you got it. And in this case, I would say another way to say it would be shows Mandarin is becoming as popular as Japanese. because they're talking about language enrollment. So how many people are taking certain classes, and so they did a survey, and so the survey would show that, you know, there are more and more people taking Mandarin, almost as many people maybe taking Mandarin as Japanese. So we could say that Mandarin is catching up to Japanese in terms of popularity and how many people are learning it. And then here it says Mandarin is positively dwarfing its regional counterparts. How would you say that in a different way? You can do it.
Making them look smaller.
Right. To dwarf somebody.
Or less important.
Yeah. Exactly. So dwarf it, positively dwarfing or overtaking, we could even say. Overtaking or outnumbering, you could say. So there are more and more people learning Mandarin than some other regional languages. Counterpart would be like the language of another Asian country, maybe like Japanese or Korean or, you know, something like that. So that's what they're saying. And this is the graph that shows that. So Japanese is still more popular, or it was in 2009, so that's about 5 years ago. Mandarin is catching up, we can say, getting more and more popular. But these other languages, Urdu, Thai, and Hindi, not too popular in the United States. No doubt this trend is even more exaggerated today. At the bottom of that chart are other economically and geopolitically important languages with hardly any American interest. The MLA counted 2,200 Hindi learners compared to over 60,000 for Mandarin. Urdu and Thai are barely visible with learners in the hundreds. Okay, Hamid.
No doubt this trend is even more exaggerated today. At the bottom of that chart are other economically and geopolitically important languages with hardly any American interest. The MLA counted 2,200 Hindi learners compared to over 60,000 for Mandarin. Urdu and Thai are barely visible with learners in the hundreds.
So exaggerated just means it's probably even more. Like the difference is exaggerated. So maybe today, if you took the same survey, there would be even more Mandarin, even less Hindi, for example. So the difference would be greater. Geopolitically important. What does that mean, Hamid? If a country is geopolitically important, or a language.
For example, Turkey is a geopolitically important country. I mean,
that's true.
Its geography is a very important place.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a kind of it's when so geo has to do with geography, where it's located, and then some countries are both located in, you know, ideal situations, like Turkey is, you know, between Asia and between Europe. It's very important. Both
our seasons and our sources are good for fruit and vegetables or other minerals.
Yeah, good natural resources. Maybe if your country has gas, you know, that kind of stuff, it could be important, that type of thing.
Yes, and also Turkey is a peninsula country.
Has water, access to water.
Yes,
and stuff.
we have 3 different seas in our country.
Right, exactly. So, you know, so basically these, you know, obviously India is important, Thai is important in the area, Thailand is important in that area of where it's located, but Americans are not that interested in learning those languages. So there's hardly any American interest. So hardly means like not very much at all. So very little interest in these other languages. The trend extends beyond American universities. The British Council survey of secondary schools in the UK shows that people elsewhere in the West are increasingly concerning themselves with Mandarin instruction. The numbers are still small for classes taken as part of the UK's national curriculum, But Mandarin is number 2 on the list of languages schools offer outside of it. Okay. Sergio. Wait. Sergio? Yeah. It's your turn.
Okay. The trend extends beyond American universities. A British Council survey of secondary school in UK showed that people elsewhere in the West are increasingly concerned themselves with Mandarin instruction. The numbers are still small for classes taken as part of UK's national curriculum, but Mandarin is number 2 on the list of language schools offer outside of it.
Yeah, so extend, that's the verb to extend, and then we use the preposition beyond. So the trend, this idea that people are wanting to learn Mandarin is, going outside even beyond just the American universities, but to other places as well. So the reach is even bigger or larger or farther away. So beyond just the American schools. In the West, in terms of people in the West. So the Western nations, of course, including the UK, for example, and Europe, they are increasingly concerning themselves with. So they're even becoming, if you concern yourself with something or with somebody, you're thinking about it. You're trying to make a plan. How am I going to do this? So to concern yourself with something is to do something about it, to think about it, to work on a plan, something like that. So because they're concerned about this or with this, they're more and more schools are offering it outside of the regular school curriculum even. But here is this, you can see Italian, that's really interesting. Italian's still popular in the England, but Mandarin is becoming more popular, and more popular than even Spanish, French, and German. So it's becoming almost the most popular. I'm curious why Italian is the most popular, though. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. China's economy is as good a reason as any to learn its language, but even if or when China does overtake the U.S. as the world's largest economy, the difficulty foreigners have learning Mandarin and its written script makes the language unlikely to challenge the dominance of English in international trade. Okay, Aldona?
China's economy is as good a reason as any to learn its language. But even if or when China does overtake the U.S. as the world's largest economy, the difficulty foreigners have learning Mandarin and its written script makes the language unlikely to challenge the dominance of English in international trade.
Yes. Okay, Araceli, I'm going to comment a minute.
But just having said that we have to learn Arabic because of ISIS, and I said, oh my God. That's a good reason to learn Arabic.
Yeah.
No.
All right, so,
Okay.
yeah, well, exactly, because the first sentence is, the economy is as good a reason as any. So maybe, Hamid, you could say, terrorist threat is as good as any to learn a language, if you're referring to ISIS. But, yeah, many people learn languages for various reasons, and sure, learning one because you want to be able to work with a country's economy, that's a good reason. There might be other good reasons to learn other languages as well. So, he's not saying you shouldn't learn Chinese. Sure, if you want to, it might be a good idea. It's a good reason to learn it. But even if or when, so we don't know if or when it will, but the Chinese economy might overtake the U.S., so it might get bigger. It might become more important than the U.S. economy in terms of being the largest one in the world. It is a bit difficult. It's more difficult than English to learn, especially because of the characters. That's the written script. So it's these unfamiliar lines on a piece of paper that don't mean anything to you until you start learning, and it can be difficult and take a while. What did you write, Hamid? It has 40,000 characters or something? I don't know. You wrote it in the chat. You did the research.
It's 40,000 characters.
Wow, yeah. So that's a lot.
But a normal Chinese person knows only maybe maximum 20,000 6,000.
Yeah, yeah.
And these guys are like journalists or scientists.
Yeah. All right. So the dominance of English, yeah, so dominance just means English language dominates. It's still the #1 language for international trade. So it's he thinks it's unlikely that it will switch to being Chinese. We don't know. We'll see. Indeed, even during Japan's dramatic post-war economic expansion, Japanese never came close to toppling English as the global lingua franca. Besides, China isn't the only Asian country with good growth prospects. And anyway, its fastest growth days are probably behind it. Okay, Araceli? Your turn?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Even during Japan's dramatic post-war economic expansion, Japanese never came close to toppling English as the global lingua franca. Besides, China isn't the only Asian country with good growth prospects. And anyway, its fastest growth days are probably behind it.
What does that mean, behind it?
The reason of that?
No, it says, and anyway, its fastest growth days are probably behind it, referring to China.
It means that the Chinese population is not growing so far as before?
The economy, the growth, yeah, of the economy, yeah. So, yeah, so even after Japan had, after World War II, Japan became a pretty powerful force. You think of all the electronics and cars and everything, but even still, it didn't overtake English. It says it came close to toppling, it never came close to toppling. Toppling means overtaking, overthrowing. So just because it was a good economy, an economic powerhouse, we could say, it didn't become the lingua franca of the world. So Japanese didn't become the most popular or used language globally. But they're saying China isn't the only one that has good growth prospects. So there are other countries in Asia that could become more powerful in terms of the economy and their population. And this guy says maybe even the fastest growth days are behind it. So maybe China has already done much of its growing. It's not necessarily going to get bigger, 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 bigger. That's what he means. All right, so if you're looking to learn an Asian language, your country and your job prospects may well benefit from a non-Mandarin option. The same goes for your kids. You might even choose Cantonese, which by some measures has around 60 million speakers, many of whom live in economically important coastal Chinese cities. Okay, Claudio.
If you're looking to learn an Asian language, your country and your job one Mandarin option. The same goes for your kids. You might even choose Cantonese, which by some measures has around 60 million speakers, many of whom live in economically important coastal Chinese cities.
Yes. So, your job prospects. So a job prospect means a possibility. So if you're looking for a job, maybe you don't need Mandarin. Maybe you would benefit from a non-Mandarin option. So maybe learning another non-Mandarin language would be even better for you in terms of getting a job or something like that. Cantonese is another popular Chinese language spoken in China. It's actually it's more spoken, I think. Don't quote me on this, but in the United States there are a lot of Cantonese speakers from China, and that's what they're saying here is that a lot of them live in the economically important areas of China, some of the coastal cities. So you might not even be able to speak to them if you only speak Mandarin, because maybe they don't speak it very well. And if you don't speak Cantonese, then you might not be able to communicate with them. Okay, so that's the idea.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember Cantonese from Kill Bill. The The master of.
Which one?
It's like the master of Kill Bill.
Oh, Kill Bill. Okay. Yeah, I didn't see that one. Kill Bill, Cantonese. Yeah.
No, really.
I haven't seen that one. I have to slowly work my way into Quentin Tarantino's world because it's kind of violent.
No, but it's funny.
Oh, it's an amazing movie. Okay, I'll see it. All right, two recommendations in one class. Okay. Well, the last one I saw was his first one, which was oh no, what was it called? The one where they rob a jewelry store and then it goes bad and they get shot and the guy comes in and it was like his first film that he made. I forgot what it's called.
Reservoir Dogs.
Yes, Reservoir Dogs.
But I think Pulp Fiction is his best movie.
Oh, okay.
You haven't seen any of them.
I saw Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you didn't like that one, don't go for the rest of them. I think Pulp Fiction is the best.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I like that one. Pretty good. It's kind of wild and crazy. But
Yes.
okay, Hamid, tell us how to say "I love you" in Turkish.
But I will say in plural meaning, sizi seviyorum.
Sizi seviyorum.
Sizi seviyorum. Seviyorum?
Seviyorum?
Yes.
Okay, write it again. Sizi seviyorum. That means I love you guys?
Yes, but in a plural meaning, because we use you in a singular and plural meaning. If I say in singular, it means sen, but if I say in a plural, it is siz. But I want to use for this hangouts people, guys, sizi seviyorum.
Sizi seviyorum.
Sizi seviyorum.
Seviyorum.
Sizi seviyorum, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Sergio. Which part is the love part?
Seviyorum.
Seviyorum. Okay.
Seviyorum.
Seviyorum. Okay, sizi seviyorum. Okay, have a great
Sizi
weekend.
seviyorum class.
Thank you. All the love, sharing the love. Yes, all right.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.